I am always reluctant to talk about these stories. It was always something that, weighed heavy on my heart when I was in law enforcement and now being retired. I recognize how much stress I was under when I was working. Physiological, probably led up to my having a triple bypass. Just, the mental stress of being in the job, the hours, you know, unfortunately, sometimes the poor diet, even though I try to do the best I could in working out and eating right, but sometimes it just catches up with you. My name is Dr. L. Welcome to the breakdown. We're going to talk about the three officers who were killed in Pennsylvania and the other two who were injured. Always on my heart, always something I think about. And when I first retired, um, I remember people saying, "Oh, congratulations on your retirement," and that was always something to me because I actually made it to retirement, and unfortunately, some others often don't make it, which I always feel horrible about. So this comes from the AP News. Suspect in killing of three Pennsylvania officers was a 24-year-old being sought on stalking charges. Let me tell you something: domestic violence. When they talk about in academies and training and whatnot, when they talk about the officers who are at most danger, it is those who are performing motor vehicle stops, and it is those who are dealing with domestic violence dangers, issues, problems. Right? You just never know. You're walking up to some stranger's house and they're in the middle of an argument and they're a heated, uh, intense moment. You don't know what's going to come. And if they got charges, if they're on the run already and they got something to lose and they don't want to go back to prison, officers don't know who they're dealing with. People think that, people oftentimes, address situations, just don't want to be pulled over and they don't want to stop and want to give officers a hard time on the side of the road and don't want to show their licenses and call a supervisor and rolling her window down 1 or 2 inches and all these kind of games. But this is why the officers take the tact that they do, because they don't know who they're dealing with. And when you are combative, when the suspect is combative or the operator is combative, this is often what is in the back of their mind. Why are you being combative with the police? Why are you claiming the officers don't have jurisdiction, etc.? Um, this is what they're dealing with a lot of times, right? The gunman who killed the three officers and wounded two more in southern Pennsylvania before he was killed by police was a 24-year-old being sought on stalking charges, according to court documents and law enforcement. The violence erupted in rural York County on Wednesday as officers sought Matthew James Ruth, who was also charged with trespassing, loitering, and prowling at night in a domestic related investigation that began earlier in the day, court documents show. So, in other words, this guy was more than likely hanging out around his ex's house, loitering, prowling at night, creeping around there, wanting to see who she's sleeping with, probably trying windows. I'm not saying he was. I'm just, from my years of law enforcement experience, trying windows, stalking around. Maybe there's dog barking. Maybe they got video evidence. He's just, being a complete creep, not able to um, take the word no as an answer, not being able to. He's not taking the breakup very well. Details on a domestic situation that led to the farm where were expected to emerge Thursday. The two injured officers remain in stable condition in the hospital. A few doors down and across the street from Ruth's home outside Hanover, neighbor Rose Miller said investigators arrived in two ways Wednesday, first around noon and again around 5 p.m. Miller said she didn't know Ruth well, but remembered him selling for fundraisers for the Boy Scouts. She said police removed items and bags from the house before leaving after midnight. No one answered the door at the Ruth home Thursday. A law enforcement official who confirmed that Ruth was the shooting suspect spoke to the Associated Press on a condition of anonymity because they weren't authorized to discuss the ongoing investigation. You can see the memorial here as these guys are driving down. Families of the officers in New York County and the community at large in the rolling farmland of southern Pennsylvania were left to grieve and search for answers a day later. Let me tell you, I had to deliver in our department. Our supervisors had to deliver news when and if someone was injured and or killed, well, killed, I should say. And having done that for a number of, I did it for our motorcycle victims. This one guy had passed away at work. I had to do it. I would have broke my heart. Fortunately, I never had to give the news to a family of a police officer who had passed. But that was it was always something that was on the back of my mind. It was always something in the back of my mind. So we need to do better as a society. Governor Josh Shapiro said we need to help people who think that picking up a gun, picking up a weapon is the answer to resolving disputes. Wednesday was one of the deadliest days for law enforcement this century, matching the toll from a day in 2009 when three officers were ambushed by a domestic violence suspect sporting a bulletproof vest. I was working when that happened, or at least on the job. I remember that. As news of the tragedy spread, community members held American flags and saluted as police and emergency vehicles formed a procession to the coroner's office. Police departments across the region mourned their colleagues on social media, while people left flowers at the headquarters of the Northern York Regional Police Department. Attorney General Pamela Bondi called violence against police a scourge on society. People, the fire trucks setting up for the American flags as the procession rolls through American flags. The confrontation unfolded on a rural road in south central Pennsylvania, not far from Maryland. Neighbor Dirk Anderson heard quite a few shots from his home across the street and wondered what was happening. Then he saw a helicopter and police arrived. Some 30 police vehicles blocked off the roads bordered by a barn, a goat farm, and soybean and cornfields. The area, North Cordores Township, sits about 115 miles west of Philly. Another officer was killed in York County in February when a man armed with a pistol and zip ties entered a hospital's intensive care unit and took staff members hostage before a shootout that left both the man and an officer dead. Gosh. Levi reported. Levy reported from Harrisburg, PA, and Durkin Richer reported from Washington, D.C. Associated Press. Oh, that's that. That's the end of that. Yeah, so it's tragic. It's tragic. It's tragic. Here's a map. Listen, I don't like this. I don't like these stories at all. You know, and I'm sure that those on the left will talk about gun violence, the easy accessibility of guns. It's going to be interesting to find out if he had any other domestic violence history. I'm sure that Pennsylvania, like many other states, if you have any type of domestic violence history, you have to surrender not only, excuse me, not only your um, uh, permits, licenses to carry, but your firearms as well. So that's going to be interesting to know that particular case. So that's what's going on down there. Um, really harsh thing to deal with. So I wish the family well. Sorry about all the officers that were killed, including the families of the one who was killed in that hospital incident a few months back in February. So we know your thoughts and your opinions. Let's see here. Just the other day, I was watching a video on Instagram. I guess the guy calls himself Millionaire Cop, and he was talking about officers who work a ton of overtime, take every single bit up until retirement, and then even in after retirement, they got to go work a security job or take driving buses. This is what he said, and let me tell you something. This job, that job that I did for 24 years, I miss it a lot of days. But there was a ton of stress, and part of the stress I know was due to thinking about my own mortality and if who was going to take care of my children if something happened to me. I know that there was stress that I put on myself. So I'm telling you, as an officer, don't work every single overtime. I'm telling you, don't work every single road job. I know you want to build up your retirement. I know a lot of times it is a way into the middle class and sometimes even to upper classes. Some guys make, depending on where you live, making well into the 200,000s, but you're doing that and forsaking your family and forsaking the precious memories with your children. And just like people, to me, being an absent father, to me, being absent is just being absent. I grew up in a church, and the preachers were absent from their own families because they're out traveling the world or traveling the U.S., giving sermons and preaching and trying to save other people's families, quote unquote, save other people's families from whatever. And then you have then cops were the same way. For me, it's always the three P's: the police, the preachers, and the politicians. Politicians also running around the country trying to save everybody else, doing this, doing that, and your own families are a mess. Those three P's of professions. The police, if you're always absent, then you're absent if you're absent, right? Whether you're at the bar, whether you're at running around trying to rub elbows with the right people to move up the chain of command. Politicians the same way. Corrections officers always working these different overtime shifts, construction. I get it. We're in this financial strait as a country. I understand it. But I'm going to tell you, nothing beats being home with your children, with your family. I coached all my kids' games for 10 years from the time I think my daughter was like 8 or 9 until she turned 18, and all my sons as well. They were older than her. I coached for 10 years just because I wanted to be there for them. I coached multiple sports. That means I couldn't do the overtime. So you got to make decisions about what's important in your life. And I feel bad for these officers here in this story that I went over. They won't be around because of some knucklehead, to be for their children. But if you're around, think about what you're doing. Think about the life that you're living, and the legacy that you're living for them. And the most important thing that you can leave them isn't just finances. It is memories. It is wisdom, knowledge, skills about how to be an adult, a healthy, functioning adult. Those are the most important times. So just think about what you're doing. And you officers out there who are still working, be safe. Be safe. Use your tactics. Use your tactics. Use your tactics. Use your radio. Be cautious. Don't be a hero. Think about what you're doing. Think about it. So we got to get the bad guy, but we got to make sure the bad guy doesn't get us. Much love and peace.